I used to think I just needed more willpower. I told myself tomorrow I'll quit scrolling Instagram, I'll stop eating junk food, I'll go to the gym. But every day I failed and I hated myself for it. Then I realized something. The problem wasn't me. It wasn't that I was weak or lazy. The real problem? I was stuck in an invisible cycle that nobody talks about. When I discovered one thing that changed everything, I broke every bad habit I ever struggled with. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it too. Stick with me until the end because I'll reveal the overlooked strategy that rewires your brain to break bad habits without relying on willpower. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about habits, and this one can't be overstated. Your habits are who you are, period. You're not an athlete if you don't work out or make time to do athletic things. You're not a leader if you don't make time to lead your people and your company. You're not a good parent if you aren't present and involving yourself in your kids' lives. But we all allow ourselves at different times to get sucked into bad habits. I'll say things like, I'm just not focused right now, or work is super busy, so I can't insert whatever. These trite little excuses that we make are bad habits in and of themselves. Today, we're going to fix our bad habits once and for all, because today we're going to discuss a simple, overlooked strategy for replacing bad habits with good that nobody talks about. And if you're not subscribed here on YouTube or wherever you listen to the show, make sure that you do that. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below with the one habit you want to break, but just haven't been able to. Let's get a feel for what everyone is struggling with. Regardless of what you're doing, you're building a habit. Every single action you repeat, whether good or bad, is wiring your brain to make the behavior automatic. You don't choose whether or not to build a habit. You only choose whether it's one that helps you or one that holds you back. According to a study in the European Journal of Social Psychology, it takes an average of 66 days for a behavior to become automatic. That means every time you repeat a bad habit, you're reinforcing it, making it harder to break it later on. But what if you could rewire your brain? So breaking bad habits became effortless. What if instead of fighting against your habits, you made them work for you? Today, I'm going to reveal a simple 3-step system used by top psychologists that almost guarantees success. But first, you need to understand why habits are so hard to break. If breaking bad habits was easy, we'd all be waking up at 5 a.m., eating clean, and hitting the gym like superheroes. But the truth is, your brain is actually working against you. Let me explain here. Every habit, good or bad, is controlled by something called the habit loop. This is a cycle that runs on autopilot in your brain. And if you don't know how to break it, hack it, you'll stay stuck repeating the same patterns over and over again. So here are the 3 stages of the habit loop. First, there's the cue, the trigger. Something in your environment or emotions triggers the habit. The second step is routine or the action. You perform the habit automatically. And third, there's the reward. Your brain gets a dopamine hit, reinforcing the loop. So let's take a habit like checking your phone first thing in the morning. The cue, you wake up. The routine, you grab your phone and start scrolling. The reward, a dopamine hit that makes your brain crave it again tomorrow. This is why bad habits feel automatic. Your brain doesn't care if the habit is good or bad. It only cares about the reward, which gives us the opportunity to hack our brains. And I know this firsthand because I'm dealing with it right now. I've got multiple projects coming to a head all at once. I'm building Linkora, I'm running this podcast, I'm creating my course, Master of the Close, I'm preparing for my TEDx talk, and I'm writing my book, The Civilized Savage. This isn't a normal workload, it's a grind. And to get it all done and done well, I've been pushing myself hard, early mornings, late nights, back-to-back focused sprints. But here's what happens when you push at that level. Your willpower starts draining fast. And when willpower drains, old habits creep in. I've caught myself making bad food choices, death scrolling social media, skipping workouts. I see what's happening. I'm reinforcing behaviors that, if left unchecked, could become bad habits. Yes, the work needs to get done. And yes, this is just a short season of intensity. But if I allow myself to use that as an excuse for developing habits that won't serve me long term, I'll come out of this season worse than I started. And then what was it all for? So the question is, how do you break the cycle? How do you stop bad habits from taking root? Because if willpower alone won't save you, what will? The answer is rewiring the habit loop. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you next. A simple 3-step system used by top psychologists to break any bad habit for good. We're going to learn how to hack our brains. All right, we've dissected why bad habits form and how our brains get hooked. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this bad boy. Here's a 3-step system to break any habit by playing the dopamine game to your advantage, using this chemical to hack your brain. Step number 1, we have to identify the trigger. Every habit starts with a cue, a trigger that sets the routine in motion. It could be stress, boredom, or specific like environmental things. So what's an example of that? Notice you reach for junk food when you're stressed. This means stress is your trigger. Spend a day or two journaling your habits. You can just keep the journal in your pocket. When do they occur? What emotions and situations precede you taking action on a bad habit? Once you know that, you can move on to step 2. Once you know what your triggers are or your cues, you can move on to step number 2. We need to replace the routine. Once you've identified these triggers, it's time to swap your routine. Instead of indulging in a bad habit, replace it with a positive one that provides a similar reward. So an example of this, when stress hits and you crave junk food, replace that urge with a brisk walk, 10 push-ups, or a quick workout. Both activities can alleviate stress and trigger a dopamine release. The key is to ensure the new activity satisfies the same need as the old habit. And now, from my experience, this can take some work. You want to marry the good habit to the bad habit so that you don't feel the need to go back to the bad habit. And sometimes, at least when you take your first try at this, the good habit may not properly replace that particular bad habit. So keep working at it, keep iterating. Once you've figured out which old habits or bad habits can be replaced by good ones, we get to move on to step number 3, the overlooked secret strategy to rewiring your brain. Celebrate small wins. Right? This is the killer overlooked strategy. Each time you successfully replace a bad habit with a good one, acknowledge it, celebrate it. The celebration triggers a dopamine release, reinforcing the new habit. And most people overlook this step because it feels like work, or worse, they feel like they don't deserve to celebrate. Celebrating your small habit victories has nothing to do with deserving. You're hacking your brain to expect a reward from good habits instead of bad. Now, in my own journey, juggling multiple projects like Lincora, my podcast, my book, I have faced the pull of all the bad habits. To combat this, I've started celebrating small wins, like choosing to cook home over DoorDash or getting a workout in despite the hectic schedule that I've discussed. This might sound stupid, but when I complete a good habit, one of the ways that I reward myself is with some Wu-Tang and some positive self-talk, like, you're the fucking man. Or I'll set a 5-minute timer to scroll X, which is like mental candy for me. This might sound trivial, but it's backed by neuroscience. Dopamine is released not just by the reward itself, but by the anticipation of the reward. Celebrating small wins creates a positive feedback loop, making you more likely to repeat the good behavior. So, we can take David Goggins, for instance. Goggins is known for his extreme endurance, right? And he emphasizes in everything he does, mental toughness. The rub with Goggins is he doesn't rely on external rewards. Instead, he derives dopamine from overcoming these challenges and pushing his limits. This internal celebration reinforces his positive habits. And he talked about this on a podcast with Andrew Huberman, right? And he talked about this on a podcast with Andrew Huberman. The reason that he prefers internal rewards over external rewards is the internal rewards are always with him. But you have to find the reward that delivers enough dopamine at the right time to reinforce your good habits. You are not David Goggins, and neither am I. By implementing these steps, you're identifying your triggers, replacing your routine, and celebrating small wins. You're not just breaking bad habits, you're rewiring your brain for the positive ones. Remember, it's not about willpower. It's about strategically leveraging your brain's chemistry to work for you, hacking your brain. Do not forget to celebrate your small victories. Each time you successfully replace that bad habit with a good one, acknowledge it. This celebration triggers the dopamine release. Do not overlook this step. You don't have to live with bad habits. We all have the power to change our bad habits regardless of how much motivation or willpower we have. It's simply hacking your brain. Now, the real question is, will you take action or will you let another day slip by? So here's a 7-day habit breaker challenge. 1, write down the habit you want to break. 2, identify its trigger. 3, replace it with a positive routine. 4, celebrate your small wins. And 5, post your progress. You can use this video, drop a comment, or DM me on Instagram and LinkedIn. Let me know how you're doing. The best time to change was yesterday. The second best time, right now. Rewire your brain, change your life. My friends, comment below with one habit that you're committing to changing this week. And if this video helped you, share it with friends who are struggling with bad habits too. This is the way.